Before I go on with the meeting, I would like to begin with a welcome to those members of the public and press, who are in the attendance, and those watching the live stream of this meeting via the Council's YouTube page. A few housekeeping rules before we begin. If members of the public in attendance need to use the facilities, these are located through the back through the reception there, in the main foyer, and by the coffee shops. If there is a fire alarm, please leave the building by the nearest fire exit, which you can see marked, and make your way to the concourse, which is the area located just before the multi-storey car park, which is in that direction. Any officers present who are due to speak, please can you wipe down the microphones once you have finished. Wipes have been made available on the desks. Can I also remind members to put their phones, mobiles, etc. on silent during this meeting. Scurry of people turning their phones on. And I'd now like to start by asking everyone to introduce themselves. It's been quite a while since we've had an actual meeting in person. It's been over the Zoom meetings or team meetings for the last while, so let's celebrate by introducing ourselves. New people here as well. So I am Ray Bisbee. I'm Councillor for Stanground South, and I'm also the Chair for Corporate Parenting. If I go to my right, and we can go around the table, please.
Good evening, I'm John Howard. I'm the Ward Councillor for Hargate and Hempstead, and I'm the Vice Chair. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Councillor Lynn Ayers. I'm the Councillor for the West Ward in Peterborough, and I'm the Cabinet Member for Children's Services, Education, Skills and the New University.
Good evening, Councillor Ishfaq Hussain for Dogsthorpe and Welland.
Good evening, Councillor Stephen Lane from Warrington.
Councillor Sandra Bond from Gunthorpe.
Councillor Lucinda Robinson from Ravensthorpe Ward.
Sorry, could you put your microphone on, please?
Dr. Mona Aslam, Designated Doctor for Children in Care, Cambridgeshire and Peterborough.
Sue Stepney, Peterborough Foster Care Association Committee.
Shalina Chandu, Quality Assurance Lead, Participation and Independent Visiting.
Hi, I'm Michaela Berry. I'm the Service Manager in the Corporate Parenting Service at Peterborough, standing in for Myra O'Farrell.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Ricky Cooper, Assistant Director for Children's Services across Peterborough and Cambridgeshire.
Thank you. I'm Karen Dunleavy, Democratic Services Officer, supporting this meeting.
Yeah. Could people just, before you speak, if you need to, move the microphone a bit closer, because some people are very hard to hear. So thank you very much, and welcome to everybody. We'll start with item 1, which is apologies for absence. So Karen, do we have any apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillors Yazine and Jones.
Thank you very much. Item 2 is a declaration of interest. I don't see anybody raising their hand to make any declarations, so we'll move on to item 3. This is the minutes of the meeting held on the 17th of March 2021. Members are being asked to approve the minutes of the meeting held on Wednesday 17th of March. Do I have a proposer and a seconder? I'm presuming that there's enough of us.
I'll propose, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lane. And any seconders? Councillor Robinson. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any who were there have any issues with those before we send them? No, thank you very much. We'll now move on to item 4. This is an update from foster carers. Can I ask the foster carer committee representative to please present their report? Thank you. And I think Fiona's going to be there as well. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm the Head of Service for Fostering across both Peterborough and Cambridgeshire. And we've agreed today that I will present the report. It's a bit of a different report than we've presented previously. And Sue is obviously here with me from the Foster Care Association to answer any questions that I may not be able to. Okay, Sue. Okay, so you'll see from the paper that we worked with both the Peterborough Foster Care Association and the Cambridgeshire Foster Care Association to really reach out to our foster carers across both councils and tell us really how they are feeling currently about developments in the service, particularly what we need to improve on, and also things that, of course, that are going well. It's really quite a bit of a benchmarking survey, I'd like to call it, because as you will have known, we've changed our fostering services really quite a bit, haven't we, Sue? Yes. In terms of, you know, we now have a very different look of fostering. So it seemed the right time to do this, and I do want to just say thank you wholeheartedly to the foster carers who took part in the survey. You'll see that whilst it was a 34% return, I think that's really rather good, and we're celebrating that because we know that foster carers are, you know, working really hard and have children. They're looking after their own children, all the demands. So just want to say thank you very much indeed for taking the time out of your busy days to respond to the survey. I don't intend to go through every question because there were quite a few, and I think, you know, we were quite aspirational in the questions that we asked, and I think also we were quite challenging as well to the service in the questions that we asked, and some of our responses that we had back are going to be fairly challenging of the service, and like I said, we also had some positives. I think the next steps for us is to work with both foster care associations to collate our themes and to then make our representation to other departments where we need to via other boards that we have internally. And I was talking to Sue about the Corporate Parenting Partnership Board, which is a service board that Myra O'Farrell, who's the head of service for corporate parenting, chairs. But we also have representatives from health and representatives from the virtual school at that meeting. And we'd like to obviously feed the voice of the foster carers into that board as well around some of the comments they've made within the survey. And I think it's also fair, isn't it, Sue, to say that I think for particularly the foster carers in Peterborough, who I'm only just getting to know, it's new, you know, there has been quite a journey of change, and I think we mentioned this, I think that was one of your questions actually to me at the last committee, you know, how the feeling, and I think what I'm hoping now is that we're in a period of consolidation, and this is the bit where we can really start building our service, and we are absolutely committed to have the voice on foster carers in almost every part. So already we have foster carers sitting on our recruitment and marketing meeting. We have a foster carer who's really interested in the training that we're delivering and is going to become part of a focus group in September. In fact, Sue, you're the one who's on the meeting with Tony, aren't you, with our marketing officer?
Yes, I'm helping support the campaign to recruit more foster carers, because it's felt that if the voice of a foster carer is on there, people see that coming from that, it may help recruit more foster carers. So they did a digital campaign this time, and the next one is digital as well, which seems to be the way to go. So we're hoping, fingers crossed, it will help. And I think listening to foster carers it is really important to people that are thinking of coming into the system to be a foster carer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I think you really are right. It's one of the reasons I wanted to get the children into our informal meetings. If you don't get the people who are getting the service there, then you don't get their voice as well as you would do. So I think by getting Sue involved and all the other ones involved, I think that's a brilliant idea, and I applaud that. I'm looking around the room. Does anybody have any questions? I have Councillor Ayres first, and then Councillor Lane. Councillor Ayres.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I had a good read of your report, which I found fascinating, actually, and I was terribly pleased to think that our foster carers and our Foster Care Association were attending and meeting up with people from other counties as well, because obviously it's such a good way to get different ideas. There's nothing quite like collaboration, is there?
Yes, I also sit on the forum with the Fostering Network, which encompasses the South East. So we've got quite a few foster care associations on that, and it does give us good ideas that we can bring to the table to discuss. And also, it helps us if there are any things that need we need to sort out. We can ask for ideas how other foster care associations have sorted it and dealt with that and put things forward, so we can do that. So it is really good that we get foster carers get involved.
I'm very impressed with that. I thought, like you, I'd actually put a big tick against the 36% return. I thought that was excellent. Well, I don't know how often you've ever done these surveys, but getting back more than a third, I thought was very good, actually. So yes, I was very impressed with that. One of the questions I wanted to look at was question 8. The one that was, would you recommend other potential carers to join the local authority in their fostering journey? And can you tell me what you thought about that? Because not everybody would do that, of course, because if not, there's some yeses and there's some nos. But so what was your view of that question in particular, coming from that amount of care?
Okay, so as you can see from the responses, 45% of those carers who did respond said yes, they would recommend, and what's really exciting is the 29 that have already recommended. Yeah, but there are 26% who have said no. So what we need to do next is to look at the responses, and because a lot of comments were made as well as just a yes or a no. So it's very hot off the press, I have to say, so we haven't done that piece of work yet, but we need now to collate those responses and understand. I do think change is a big both, the change that foster carers have gone through, the change that the service has gone through, changes in social worker, I think, Sue, you were saying, is one of the reasons that foster carers can feel quite frustrated. So the next step is to do that in collaboration with the foster care associations and drill down.
Yes. We'll work together again, basically.
Oh, yes, it is one of the first surveys we've done like this.
Right.
But it won't be the last.
No, I'm sure. Yeah. Thank you very much. Anyway, I thought it was very good, very interesting.
Chair, could I just come in, just to add really, and to provide some reassurance. What we discovered from the survey, obviously from that number, is that we did have foster carers that wanted to tell us their story. So what we are going to do is we're going to be drilling down into the survey to actually see whether we can approach those carers and they'll talk to us about their experience as to why they wouldn't recommend, so that we can correct that.
You never get 100% in anything with a survey.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ayres and Ricky, and thanks for the answers as well. It's good to see those figures, because having being a person that's putting out questionnaires before, you've got quite a good number there, so congratulations on that. And maybe we'll get in even higher later on, you never know. It's good that you're going to keep doing that too.
And that was certainly down to the really hard work of both Foster Care Association chairs. That was their work, and obviously their colleagues.
I think foster carers are very keen to work together to make the fostering service the best that it can be, and through collaboration that's what we can do. So we're really keen to work together with Peterborough to do that.
Yeah, no, that's all good news. Councillor Lane, you've got your question.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It was to be a comment rather than a question, and actually a congratulations to extend, but listen to the interaction between Fiona, I think, and Sue to Councillor Ayers' questions. It's highlighted the fact that the team set this survey for a specific purpose. The outcomes are actually quite obvious for all to see, and I would think you're setting out now to improve the foster carers' experience throughout both organisations, and I must congratulate you for that, because you've got some work to start with now. And listening to you, I know you've already made a good start with it. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Councillor Robinson, you have a question.
Yeah, thank you. So I was looking at the graph for question 5, where people were asked, would you be willing or available to share your experience with others? And I note that the training category came out quite high for both council areas. So could you describe how the service might respond to that? Because that's really great that that number of carers are offering themselves forward to help with training.
You're quite right. So as I was saying, we do have a training focus group, and the first meeting is in September. We already have foster carers who work with us on training, so attend our Skills to Foster, which is the prospective carers and assessment, so they help us deliver that. But I think there's a lot more opportunities as well than just those two. Would you not agree, Sue?
Definitely, and there's lots of experience that comes from the carers from other walks of life that they've been in, and they would really like to put that forward in training and use that experience and knowledge that they've got in training to support other foster carers through their fostering journey.
And I think as well we're looking at the peer mentorship framework that we offer, so that's for carers in their first year of fostering, and certainly looking to our more experienced carers to support us with that, because I think, you know, if you're talking to somebody who really understands what you're experiencing, you're going to learn so much more, and it's so more, you know, it is very supportive, isn't it? So we're definitely looking at how we can make that a clearer offer to foster carers, but also, you know, just I suppose it's all about, for me, it's about learning from the people who are doing it day in, day out, day in, day out. And it's, you know, there are challenges, aren't there? So it can be difficult. So we really need to draw on their expertise. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson, for the question, and thank you for the answers. I think what this shows me is that there's been quite a lot of change over the last while, and that can be really destabilising for some people. But what I think you've done here is you've managed to get people start coming together, and you've kind of put a fire under their enthusiasm, and I think it's going to burn brightly, and I think that alone will prove to be a great asset to you in the future. So I don't see anybody else's hand up, so in that case, oh sorry, I see. I didn't see yours. I do apologise.
Sorry. My question refers to the first table, where it's asking whether they feel fosterers, do you feel fully supported by the fostering service? The ones that say they're not, you know, they don't feel fully supported, 35 to 63%, nearly 1/3. What do you feel is lacking, or what is needed to provide the support to those fosterers? What do you think they're missing out on, or what else is needed?
Okay, so from obviously I'm going to let Sue explain from her point of view as well, but certainly from the service point of view, we are a new service. We are working differently than we've had before. So what we need to do is share our vision with foster carers. As we've said, create as many participation opportunities as we possibly can so that they feel part of the service, that they feel that they have a voice, that they feel valued, that they are really, I hope, our greatest asset really in the service. We have other initiatives that we need to, I suppose that's the next stage, if you like. So we've already looked at our statement of purpose. That's launching next week, so that will be on our website. We're looking at a new website design. I mean, there's lots of new things, and I think that's what we now need to deliver on. I think there's, as I said, there's been a time of continual change, and now we need to consolidate, as I was saying before, but I suppose we need to get on with it now. Yes, we need to deliver what we've said we will deliver. Yes, is that about right, Sue?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think when there are changes, which inevitably in any role that you do, there are always changes, that those changes are made as seamlessly as possible. So, for instance, in a change of a supporting social worker, that change goes from the old supporting social worker to the new one, and things are still kept the same, rather than all these changes coming into the foster care and saying, right, now you're going to do it this way, and this way. And that is, I think, a big thing that then throws the whole foster family out of sync. So that's one of the important things.
Thank you. I think, as you say, that will help with the stabilisation of understanding between people as well. So before I go on anymore, I'll just look around. Any more hands? Yes, Dr. Haslam.
What is the average length of time from the time somebody registers to show interest in being a foster carer to actually becoming a foster carer?
So between 4 and 6 months.
And is that something that puts people off, or they're finding that that's a reasonable length of time?
I think that is I think that's the average. Of course, every family situation is different, so some assessments are quite complex and will take longer. But I should imagine, as a prospective foster carer, you would want that assessment period to be as quick as possible. But we also need to make sure that when a foster carer becomes approved, that they have all the tools they need, that they have been prepared in the right way to be able to obviously provide the safe and best care for children in care.
Thank you. I think, Ricky, you wanted to come in.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to add, really, that it's a very valid question to ask, because we want to get the right foster carers coming through our doors, and that does take obviously some time for us to assess. What we have implemented within the service is some key performance indicators, because there wasn't any before. So we now have standards around how many days it will take for us to ring a prospective foster carer, go and visit them, how many days and months it will take for the assessment. So we're aiming for our assessments to be completed in 4 months. That's our gold standard. We're able to take as long as is required. We're not going to cut corners and cut quality, but we will do it in a timely way, and that will be all the lights have gone out, and that will be managed by me as the assistant director who's responsible for fostering.
Thank you, Ricky, and thank you for those answers. I think from my point of view, if I was going to be a foster carer, I would want to make sure that everything had been done correctly. So anybody who wants to be one, you'd be expecting it to be done right no matter how long it took. That's just me, I suppose, but yeah, thank you.
I think that's the same from all foster carers' point of view, that it has to be done properly and everybody has to have all the checks and be prepared to do that. And if that takes 6 months or 9 months, depending on family circumstances, then that's what it takes. And I think foster carers are happy with that, or potential foster carers on the whole are happy with that.
Yeah, I think it's making sure that people understand that when they come into the, giving them the right information. Okay. Thank you very much. I don't see any more hands raised now this time. So in that case, can I please ask, do members agree to note this report? I'm seeing positive nods, so we can accept that. Thank you very much. We now move on to item 5, which is the update from the Youth Voice Coordinator on behalf of the Children in Care Council. Can I ask Selina, or, yeah, are you going to do this?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I will.
Thank you.
So I'll take you through some highlights of the report. First of all, we're very pleased to have been able to go back to offering some face-to-face activities after a long period of time of predominantly virtual ones. So we've decided to offer quite a large summer programme. It includes face-to-face visits. There's a visit to farm, ice skating, laser tag. There's a whole day of outdoor team building adventure, which will include things like canoeing and kayaking, problem solving games, bushcraft skills. We're also maintaining some virtual activities because that's the feedback we got from young people. So we have 2 virtual activities we've organised. One is a virtual escape room, and the other one is a fitness activity, which is actually a Zumba session. And these have been designed by our out of area group, who wouldn't be able to attend face-to-face activities as easily as those placed nearby. We're also launched the annual art exhibition, which we first started last year. In fact, it was a suggestion from one of our social work team managers, and it's gone extremely well. The children care councils across Peterborough and Cambridgeshire chose the themes. So they chose well-being and mindfulness, animals and nature, and sports and activity. So we're inviting all children, not just children in care, but any child with social work involvement, to submit a piece of art and a bit of an explanation about it. And we'll have our virtual premiere on YouTube on the 31st of August, and all of you will receive an invitation to hold that in your diaries. If you're unable to make it at the time, obviously you can log in later and watch it. And the Children Care Councils do log in later to look at the comments, so if you wanted to leave some comments, they certainly would receive those. So the Children Care Council are now meeting face-to-face, which they're very pleased to be doing. And they've continued to be consulted by various teams and services, which they very much enjoy. Really lovely experience recently was a Children Care Council of Peterborough met their counterparts in Cambridgeshire and explained to them some of their recent projects, in particular the coming into care packs and the goodbye cards. And the Children Care Council in Cambridgeshire have want to actually use both of those ideas and will be doing so. So it was a lovely experience for our young people to know what a difference they made and how impressed their counterparts were. They also met with Ofsted at our recent Ofsted inspection, and they were able to show those 2 projects to the inspectors and got great feedback from them as well. We've also been working on some awards events. So the young people again are choosing how they would like to be celebrated. And this year they've decided to go for a fun day. So previously we had 2 separate events. One was for younger children, one was for older young people. And this time they want to do a fun day outdoors. We've got an indoor space as well to make sure that any COVID restrictions don't affect this function. So we've got things like bouncy castles, and we've got art activities, and we've got a raffle, and we've got games. And as usual, our children care will be receiving certificates of achievement. And they've been nominated by IROs and social workers and foster carers and teachers as well for those. Just a quick update on recruitment. So in February or March this year, we just tried to highlight our recruitment drive, and we did some training with young people on how to be effective in recruitment. This has gone extremely successfully. So just in the last few months, our young people have had 2 training sessions, and we have been involved in student social worker recruitment, which I think I mentioned last time, and more recently team managers, independent chairs and family group conference coordinators. So the young people have had training, they receive certificates to show that they've had the training and listing the skills that they get from this, and we get feedback from them after the recruitment, and they have told us they enjoy being part of recruitment. It shows them that their experience and views matter, and it helps them improve their own interview skills for the future because they know what to expect when they go to an interview, so they'll be more confident. So that was my update, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you just give us the date of that event again?
The awards event.
The awards.
So the awards event for Peterborough is on 13th of August. You should all have received an invitation in your calendars, but it would have been quite some time ago, so I can get that resent, but it should be held in your calendars, and if you are able to attend, that would be amazing.
Thank you very much. In fact, I need to speak to you about that. If you could give me a phone call.
I will do.
I'm sure if you contact Karen, she can give you my personal number. I need to get some money to you for that other thing.
Okay,
I've got it here actually, but I know you need to go disappear. But do we have any questions? Councillor Robinson.
Thank you for your report. I was just reading about the activities, and I wanted to commend the team for organising such fun, adventurous, face-to-face things, because I think we all know children have had a really boring year. So the chance to get out and go ice skating or laser tag, and I know it's not the easiest thing to organise trips. It's always a little bit more nerve-wracking when you take them somewhere out in public, so I know it takes a lot more effort to do it. But on that topic, I'm not sure if a young person or child lives with a relative or foster carer who doesn't have a car, as some of these are done with Cambridgeshire, might be a little bit further away, are they able to access kind of funded transport to get them to the event?
We have had a few inquiries about transport, and what we've been able to do so far is offer young people a lift, because some of them are travelling from Peterborough. And we have Cambridgeshire young people attending as well, and there are volunteer drivers who they can actually engage. If we're unable to offer a lift, because obviously we have a capacity issue as well, then we just reach out to the service and ask them to arrange travel.
Super. And then another thing that I wanted to ask that just struck me about children who don't live in the area is that I imagine they live somewhere where perhaps the local service to them is organising all sorts of exciting days for those children. And is there ever any kind of reciprocal arrangement that if one of our young people was living in Essex and the Essex service had a fabulous summer itinerary, do people get to sign up to that? Or if we have kids living in this area who are perhaps under the responsibility of different counties, do they get to join in us?
So these are advertised to our foster carers and to our young people directly. So wouldn't know how a young person who was placed by another authority would get that information. But it's something I can discuss with you, and we can look at that. Yeah. I mean, our participation activities are primarily focused on getting feedback. So we do fun activities, but what we want is feedback that can change services, our services. So we do have a focus on young people who we're caring for, but I can certainly talk to the service and see if there's anything we can do, perhaps update you.
Thank you, because I just thought if some of our young people aren't placed here locally, they're of course not getting to join in this much fun, but I imagine someone local to them is organising the same kind of stuff. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson, for that. And thank you for the questions. And I know that work will go on behind the scenes. Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Ayres.
Thank you, Chair. I think I was looking at your paragraph about these young recruiters, Shalene, which I think is an absolutely excellent idea. How old do they have to be to do this? Because, I mean, obviously you're not going to have the very young, but but I can see that it's very beneficial to them to get involved in something like that and learn just what happens in interviews.
We've actually had children as young as 8 involved, so not necessarily sitting on the panel interviewing, but separate young persons panel. We go through, so for example, we have a participation officer vacancy. We'll go through with them as a group, What do they think the ideal participation worker is? We draw a picture, show them some, they write some things down. From that, they develop questions, and then we ask the candidate to come in and speak to them. We ask the candidate to engage them first, so we give them some paper and pens and say, here's do an icebreaker activity, and then the young people have some questions for you. Now, some of those questions may be, who is your favourite superhero? It may be, but the young people are able to see the reaction and form an opinion. So that's what we do with the younger kids. Older young people have been sitting side by side with interview panelists. So we've tried different ways and just trying to get as many young people involved as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Ayres, for that question and the answers. Anybody else got any more questions? Councillor Lane.
Just briefly, Chair, I couldn't remember the invite from the participation, CRCC participation, but I found it now. It came from Maria Ali in March. So if you search under her name, CRCC participation, the invite's there. Yeah. But new members won't have had it, so it'd be a good idea to send it out.
Absolutely, we'll make sure that happens.
Yeah, no, that's good. I do have it, but it'd be good to get it out again. Yeah. I think the young people getting together with other groups is fantastic. And the fact that they can see they've done something, they've come up with ideas that other people haven't had,
yes.
And they can share those. It just shows you, shows them how useful they've been within our area and how much they may impact on other people's lives as well. So I hope there may be something come back as well. It's not just, hope it's two-way. And maybe in the future, maybe the panels could meet, our corporate parenting panel could meet with the other one just to see how they work. It might be something we can look at down the line. And but no, I'm more than happy to see that. I don't see anybody else's hand up. So do members agree to note this report? I'm seeing agreement all the way around. So thank you very much. And I do believe you have to leave now, so thank you very much. Item 6 is the appointment of champion members. Can I ask Karen to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. So this is a report that's presented to committee to agree the corporate parenting champion positions and the appointments to those positions. And in your report, you'll see the list of champion roles within that and the councillors that have put themselves forward. We did discuss this report at the informal meeting on the 16th of June, and this is where the nominations have come from. But if there are any other nominations than those listed, then please put some names forward and we'll go through the usual voting if needs be.
I can't see anybody raising their hands to change anything. So we're asked to do three things. So first of all, note the contents of the report. The second is to confirm the corporate parent champion's roles. Is everybody happy to do that? Thank you. And thirdly, confirm the appointment of the corporate parenting champions. Thank you very much. So I think we can now move on to item 7. Item 7 is the annual fostering service report. And I believe, Ricky, you were going to do this? Oh, sorry, Fiona is going to do this. Thank you, Fiona.
Hello again. So this is the Fostering Service Annual Report of the Peterborough Fostering Service. So I just wanted to say that obviously this report covers the period from April to March this year. So having just recently changed in terms of our roles and responsibilities, and certainly mine as head of service. I've actually only come at the very end of that year, so I do apologise if I don't have perhaps the depth of answers that you may be looking for, but I will do my best. So in terms of the executive summary, I've obviously just summarised the delivery model for the fostering services has changed and the core roles and functions. I've obviously acknowledged the impact of the pandemic on both our foster carers and staff working within the service as well. So the key highlights included the service returning to the local authority in October 2019. And it was part of the corporate parenting service, head of service being Myra O'Farrell, until the 1st of December when I took over as head of service. So during the reporting period, the service recruited 6 new fostering households. At the end of March 2021, there were a further 10 assessments in progress. So because they're still in progress, they'll fall into this year. Because obviously the foster carers will be attending panel this year. 6 foster families also resigned from fostering. So actually there was no net gain of fostering households last year. And I have been asked before to sort of explain the resignations. I think, that there's obviously the impact of the pandemic on families making different decisions about next steps, and physical ill health, and certainly lifestyle choices, and retiring due to age. No foster carers transferred to independent fostering agencies last year, which is a real positive. And we did have 1 fostering family transfer to Cambridgeshire, which obviously now we wouldn't be in a position that there was any need to do that. Yes. Okay. So at the end of March, there were 50% of all children in care who are fostered were living with in-house foster carers. And I just made the mention, obviously there's greater detail in the report around the training that foster carers have attended over the year.
Thank you very much. Any questions from anybody? Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was really interested to see the carer recruitment and retention stats, and it was incredible to see there was 161 inquiries. I was just wondering, obviously, as you go through, it's natural enough that the numbers drop at each step of the process, but is there anyone sort of actively I don't know if prospecting is the right word, but is anyone prospecting back to those original inquiries to see if there's anyone that we can get further down the chain, or is it the fact that once they fall off the chain, it's probably with a good reason either way?
Yeah, so I mean that can be the case, obviously, but certainly the inquiries that didn't proceed during the pandemic, we have gone back to say, well, now we're in a slightly different space. What do you think? And what the service has invested, what the council has invested in, is new recruitment officer posts. So we have 3. And they work very closely with our recruitment and assessment teams and our recruitment and marketing manager. And certainly the targets that Ricky was mentioning earlier around callbacks. So the key is that we really want to keep people engaged, and be there, be responsive, answer their questions, come out to see them. But through those conversations, it may be that some people who think, I quite like the idea of fostering, they may think, actually, I'm not sure my daughter or my son, or we're ready for it, or, actually, now we've spoken. And I think this is one area, talking about participation with foster carers, that we'd really appreciate some support from our foster carers to come out on those initial visits with us, to have those conversations with prospective carers, because I think that, to be able to do that will give them, the best I guess, the best understanding of what the fostering task is.
Thank you. That's really, really interesting to hear. Thank you.
Ricky, you want to come in on that?
Sorry, I was just going to add, just for clarity, that all the allowances now for both Cambridgeshire and Peterborough are the same. We've got a shared front door in respect of our recruitment function. So if you are a foster carer wishing to present yourself, you get the same offer. I mean, and that again is something that we're looking at as a service to define in relation to what does the offer look like and how can we improve it so that we encourage people to step forward to become foster carers.
Thank you very much, Ricky. Fiona. Councillor Ayres, you have a question.
Thank you. I'm assuming that we can ask questions throughout this report, Chair.
So,
It's not just the start of the report we're dealing. I can ask a question about the rest of the report as well, can I?
I believe so, yes.
Yes. Oh, thank you very much. I was looking in particular and thinking about how you've set up the service, and I did notice that you've kept the separation between Cambridgeshire staff who are supervising Cambridgeshire foster carers and Peterborough staff supervising Peterborough carers. I thought that was very sensible. It's a sort of shared, it's a hybrid shared service almost, isn't it? And so the bits where I thought was very interesting, that your reviews that you do and recruitment you do together, but not the entire service. Can I say, is that working well, doing it that way?
So certainly the shared front door, as Ricky has already said, provides the same offer for carers, or prospective carers, whether you live in Peterborough or Cambridgeshire. I'm sort of going to jump now to the back end of the service, which is the household review and practice standards. So we do have a combined training offer, and actually our brochure has just come out very recently. So foster carers get the same offer around training, and the process of household reviews is monitored in that part of the service across both councils. So there's lots of efficiencies and opportunities within those shared parts of the service, but we are still two separate agencies, if you like, providers, if you like. So Peterborough foster carers are approved through the Peterborough Foster Carer Panel, and the Cambridgeshire foster carers through the Cambridgeshire foster panel currently.
Good.
And the staff who are obviously, like I said, Peterborough social workers with Peterborough foster carers, and Cambridgeshire social workers with Cambridgeshire foster carers. It's a bit of a mouthful,
I think it's very sensible to do it that way as well. And the other question I had was that I was looking through and about how you managed to get the idea into people's heads that they can be a foster carer. I know you do it through advertising on social media, and generally, I can imagine. I mean, do you sort of attend any groups or anything like that, to sort of different sorts of groups? I see that you're talking about wanting people more diverse ethnic backgrounds, which obviously is very helpful culturally for people if you've got people who are prepared to do that. And also, you mentioned disabilities as well, and I just wonder whether do you have enough people wanting to do it from these different areas?
I think the short answer is there's a lot of improvement to make in those areas. So you're absolutely right. So we're working quite closely with our colleagues in Think Communities, thinking about how we can engage in different ways other than, I guess, what you're saying is the sort of social media type advertising and the recruitment campaigns and radio as well. So, definitely there's other opportunities that we need to tap into, and we need to to be honest, it was interesting from the earlier question, I think foster carer word of mouth is so important. So as we said earlier, if a foster carer recommends, that's a really good recruitment tactic, isn't it, I suppose? But no, you're right, there is improvement to do, but we are working with other parts of the councils to try and, I guess, as I said, find the opportunities that we've yet not tapped into.
Yes, because people have different experiences in life, don't they? And of course,
absolutely.
the children that come into foster care are subject to different opportunities and difficulties in life, and it would be helpful if people could put themselves forward who have some experience of those. Yes, thank you very much. I think that was very interesting.
Thank you very much. Councillor Robinson, I believe you're next.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to ask a question about page 42. So about safeguarding allegations and standards of care. So I know that there were 5, and one of them was a section 47, and I'm aware that the triaging for section 47 generally means that things aren't generally a trifling matter if they're investigated in that way. And 4 went on to have a concern remain. But looking at the timescales, it seems to me that it seems quite a shame that of those 5 investigations, none of them were done in less than 6 to 10 weeks, and in fact 4 of them being more than 50 days. And the statutory timescale for section 47 is 45 days when I checked. So are you able to kind of share why it has, what's been the kind of roadblocks in being a bit quicker, and has there been any implications of them being over 50 days?
Okay, so yes, those timelines are far too long. And I think what we're modelling up here maybe a little bit is the allegation process for foster carers and the child protection process that's around the child. So certainly I can speak to the fostering allegation process. So we would expect that to conclude within 4 weeks. So in terms of going forward, when I was talking about the practice standards part of the service, that is absolutely their role to monitor the effectiveness and timeliness of those allegation investigations. And we do have targets around those as well.
So if the target is to aim more for 4 weeks, could you describe why they have those 5? What kind of thing had meant that the target wasn't met?
Okay, so it's as I explained at the beginning, I may not know all the detail that you ask, but I suppose you would expect it would be either, staff absence, that sometimes it would be perhaps, information not being collated, but I'm surmising because I don't know, I'm afraid.
Councillor Robinson, are you happy with that answer?
Well, I guess I can ask again next year and see if we're achieving the 4 weeks a little better.
Yeah.
But I take it is there an action plan to kind of aim to get them in that 4 weeks?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think Ricky wants to come in on that.
Yeah, I think it's a very fair challenge, and I think it's one that the service recognises. One of the reasons that we created the practice standards and household review team was to tackle that particular issue. So whilst the child protection aspect of it may be resolved, and we would hope that that would be resolved in a very timely manner, as you quite rightly articulate, the process in terms of taking those particular foster carers back to panel, which is in our allegations procedure, can take longer. And I mean, again, I don't know the detail of those 5 specifics, but again, what I would suggest is that it wasn't to the detriment of any child, but what it would have been is it would have been very stressful for the foster carer involved, and Sue, who represents foster carers here, will have talked about the fostering network, and all our foster carers are supported by the fostering network. So where there is a foster carer that has had an allegation made against them, they are provided with independent support in that respect, and that is provided outside of the service for that very reason. So I would be confident that those foster carers would be supported, but it is recognised that we do need to speed up. And there are two components, as Fiona said. Child protection component, which is our job to work alongside the local authority to make sure that's done in a timely way, but also the allegations process that we are responsible for. So my anticipation is that we'll see an improvement in that, as you allude to, next time we come. Thank you.
So thank you, Councillor Robinson, for the question, Ricky and Fiona for the answers there. So you have at least one question you can expect next year. So let's see how that works out. Anybody else got any questions? Yes, Councillor Bond.
Yes, it's on page 42 as well. It might sound a silly question actually, and during the investigations time, what actually happens to the children that are in foster care during that investigation time?
Councillor Bond, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Could you speak into the mic, please, because we'll move the mic a bit closer to you.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Yes, the question is, during the investigation time, what actually happens to those fostering children? Do they go into other foster carers' homes?
I think, again, that's really helpful because that does demonstrate sort of the two different, well, they're not different, they're together, they work in unison, but there's like two different approaches. So the child protection part, which is around the child, the children's social worker and their team will be making the decisions primarily with our, information and I guess in conjunction with us, but they will lead that to make the decision as to whether a child, depending on what the allegation is, can remain or can't remain within that foster home whilst the investigation proceeds. So, and like I said, depending on what it is, it can be a different one decision. I guess what you have to balance is the change for the child, and then again how safe it is for the child to remain in the foster home.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm looking around the room. Any more hands raised? No, I don't see any. So, in that case, can we please ask, do members agree to note the report? I'm seeing positive nods around the room, so thank you very much. We now move on to item 8, which is the annual adoption report. And Fiona, I believe you're still in the hot seat.
No, this is my colleague Joe.
Oh, Joe's going
Joe Banks.
Right. Thank you. Good evening, Joe.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Jo Banks. I'm the interim acting head for the Regional Adoption Agency. So I'm sort of here today to speak to the report that was completed. Just to give a bit of an overview, normally obviously there's an annual report that's presented at these committees. The Regional Adoption Agency has only been live for 6 months, so it kind of went live on the 1st of December. So certainly what was presented is more of a summary of kind of the activity to date and kind of, I guess, the changes that are in place. So just to say, next time there will be a much fuller report because it will be a much more annual report. So I guess, first of all, really, the structure for the Regional Adoption Agency in the last 6 months has remained what was proposed in the autumn of 2020. So there is 3 distinctive services. So despite going live, no other changes has happened within the service. So you've got the recruitment team, which focuses on the recruitment, the marketing around adopters, but also assessing them and taking them to panel to be approved adopters. You then have a team that focuses on the children, so they know of all of the children for Cambridgeshire and Peterborough that may well need an adoptive family. So that enables us to hopefully make quite a timely, speedy match between the 2 parts of the service. And then finally, you have the adoption and special guardianship support team. So they support all of the families post those permanent orders that have been in place. And I think that's one of the big differences, is it's joined part of the the fostering assessment service in relation to the special guardians, and we take it over when it comes to the actual final ongoing support, sort of post-order to some extent. One of the other big changes is in the last couple of months we've sort of stabilised the management team. So since the adoption agency went live in December, there's been some changes in that. So I've recently stepped up to being the acting head for the regional adoption agency. We've also been able to recently recruit to the team manager posts. So what that's given us is a bit of a stable management team that we can now really build on taking the regional adoption agency forward. Without those posts, it's been hard to kind of maintain and keep the day-to-day business as well as the overall kind of service development moving on. But I think what is clear is, even though it has only been 6 months, it's been a very active 6 months. So we haven't really had a period of being able to sit and relax and kind of pull it all together. It's been kind of go right from the start. So in the sense of the actual recruitment, we've had 155 inquiries, which itself has translated to 24 applications for adopters to be approved, which is certainly a lot higher than it was last year. That's quite a high conversion rate, so that's kind of positive because it means we've got a good base to be able to move forward for those, finding those right matches for the children to some extent. Family Finding have maintained being very busy. They're tracking a high number of children and have got 60 children which are actively kind of heading towards adoption. One of the critical bits, I think, for us, and this is quite pivotal, is panel. So we've joined the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough adoption panels together. We've got the chairs that work together, that we've been able to pull in procedures around that. And they've been quite key to make sure that we haven't slowed things down. You know, we've still been able to get to panel, we've still been able to approve those adopters and approve the matches, which actually means that we've already placed 24 children in quite a difficult COVID-related period, really, around, you know, how do you move children on safely in a way that's not preventing drift to some extent. So I think, and they've been a real, certainly for me, has been quite a linchpin to make sure that we haven't allowed things to slow down and we've kind of kept that momentum going. So that's the real positive for me. And I think we're in a place now where we've got nearly 50 adopters in assessment in varying different stages of that. So again, it kind of means we can keep that momentum going. That's kind of my bit of a summary. I don't know if that's helpful, but...
No, thank you very much, Jo. First of all, congratulations and thank you for stepping up. It's sometimes very hard to make that decision, to make that step. You know what you're going into.
Thank you.
Congratulations. And I do see a theme through what's happening at the moment, not with you, but with the collaboration with Cambridgeshire. I can see that coming through all the service, and I think that's only a good thing. It's a positive thing, and it does give a bit of stability, as you say, and I think that stability, to be able to move forward at a pace that you were set before, is, you know, congratulations to you for doing that. I'm looking now for hands raised. Councillor Robinson and then Councillor Ayres.
Thank you. So I appreciate it's really hard to do a report 6 months in, so I thought I'd just ask a very general question. Okay. So as it's been 6 months since it's gone live, what do you feel is the best thing that's come out of the creation of the adoption agency and the collaboration?
I think the bit for me is about shared practices. So Cambridgeshire and Peterborough adoption services did do things differently. I think, you know, that there was never any kind of question about that. Certainly, I think we've learned a lot. We've been able to take the good practices from both bits and being able to merge that bit together. And I think learning within that, we've got staff that have come into the regional adoption agency from both local authorities and certainly are a team that are wanting to learn from each other. So to some extent, I think being able to recruit from a bigger pool of area, being able to think about how we do the assessments more timely, how we're able to make sure that we don't lose the quality within that is I think being one of the biggest kind of benefits for us. And in quite a short space of time, you know, we had to really quickly look at the different processes and decide what is it that we're doing, what is it, how are we going to do this, because we can't have adopters experiencing a different service within the same service. So that's been one of the big sort of achievements, I think, for us, and just being able to feel like we are one identity, which is always going to be a big challenge.
Thank you very much for the question, Councillor Robinson, and the answer. Councillor Ayres next.
Thank you, Chair. I keep reading in the newspapers generally that there are less children than used to be adopted. Certainly when I was young, which is quite a long time ago now, there was a lot of adoption happening. Do I take it that, I mean, you sound enthusiastic about the amount of children that are involved in this now, and that you're moving forward to help. How does that compare with other authorities? Do you know? I mean, are we getting more adoptions and more success for children than we have in the past?
I think, I don't know if I've got the data to kind of compare with other local authorities. I think what I would say is that family finding they're aware of the right children at the right time. So there are a lot of children in care, and I think that's the one bit that you will be aware of. I think the bit for us is to know who are the right children that we need to be aware of and at what point. So how do we achieve permanence at the earlier point with the right children? So I don't think Cambridgeshire and Peterborough have reduced their numbers of children that have been placed for adoption. I think looking at the data that and again, it's difficult because I don't know Peterborough's data as well as last year's data anyway, particular. But I think it is about making sure that we get the right care plan. So we're doing it a lot quicker. I think there is still some areas that we need to improve on, but I don't think we have seen a particular slowdown in the sense of number of children for adoption. I think what my family finding team manager will say is there's a lot more thinking about, if there are alternatives, deciding them at a much earlier point so that you don't have children waiting longer for that permanent plan to some extent. If adoption isn't going to be achievable, then we make that decision at an earlier point for them.
Can you give me some idea what sort of ages you're getting children adopted by? I can imagine that probably babies would be very interested in adopting a child, you know, from early birth or under the age of 1. But do you get many older children involved as well?
Yeah, we do. I mean, I think it would be fair to say that majority of our work is children under the age of 2, and that particularly is what we've seen certainly during the COVID kind of period. There's been an increasing number of babies that are placed either in foster care and they're subsequently placed for adoption. That is the one bit, and we can see that coming forward. I don't think that's going to slow down. So certainly the data that we get from the fostering service is really helpful about understanding who those children are. We do place older children and we do place sibling groups. I think recently we have placed a 7-year-old for adoption as part of a sibling group, and there's certainly another set of children which have started introductions this week, and they are of 6, I think one is 6 and one is 4, from what I recall from my panel role. So I think we do place the older children. I think what we need to be better at is identifying when we're not going to be able to place them internally, so that we are much quicker at being able to make sure that if we haven't got that resource ourselves, we're able to pull that resource from somewhere else, because it is about making sure these children achieve permanence, whether hopefully with our adopters, but if not, then elsewhere. The one bit that I think, they're not the high proportion, the older number of children, but we still need those adopters for that. So we're kind of looking at new case studies. Tony, the marketing officer, is already kind of got new case studies. We're looking at pulling a video together so that we can attract adopters to those harder to place children. We have a large pool of adopters for the younger ones. They are not the harder to place children that we need to actively recruit, which sounds a bit of a weird thing for adoption, but that is what we have to do. It is needing to recruit parents for them. So we need to shift our marketing strategy much more around the older children and those harder to place, which have got more complex needs, because these children will come with a lot of uncertainty. You can't take that away from their backgrounds. They are going to need a different type of parenting, I think it's fair to say, than what an average birth parent would offer. I don't know if that's helpful.
Thank you. Anybody else with any questions? Joe, thank you very much for that. I can't see any other hands raised. So do members agree to note the report? Again, I see positive head shakes, and so we can accept that. Item 9 is the IRO report for 2020-2021. And I believe, Jeffrey, you're going to produce that with Anna, is that correct? Sorry, I've got the wrong name. Jane. Sorry, Jane. I do apologise. I was informed, but
that's okay. Don't worry. No, that's no problem. So hi everyone. My name's Jane Bellamy, and I am the Deputy Safeguarding Lead in Peterborough. So I manage some of the independent reviewing officers.
Good evening. I'm Geoffrey Frederick, and I am an independent reviewing officer.
Okay, so I'm just going to run through some of the key highlights of the report and then come for any questions. So if we look at the executive summary, the number of children in care for this year did fall slightly, in particular with regards to children coming into care. That may be a result of the well-embedded family safeguarding model that's being used in Peterborough, which is a model where we see specialist workers working with families to reduce risk to children with a hope to prevent children coming into care. We had 1,021 childcare reviews for the year. I'm really proud to say timeliness of reviews continue to be really good. And the IROs continue to use the escalation protocol, which is really important. It's a really important process to use to prevent drift for our children and to ensure that we get those good outcomes for them. I did just want to highlight in the report one of the most important things for me in this report is some of those impact examples. I'm sure you've read them. They're just a few of the impact examples that our IROs have on our children that they work with. So really, really good to see those, what children wanted, what they had to say, and what the IRO did about that really, and what impact that had. So yeah, I think that's really important to see that in the report. So workload continues to be consistent for our IROs, and that's really important because we have quite high expectations around monitoring. We want our IROs to be having midpoint monitoring reviews with social workers and managers, checking in, making sure the kids are okay in between reviews, and so they need the capacity to do that. So they have remained consistent, which is good. So IROs continue to address poor practice, continue to raise alerts when needed, but continue to work collaboratively with social workers and managers, and there's some really good relationships that are formed there. But IROs continue to be independent and raise concerns when they need to, which is really, really important. In terms of children's voices, a lot of, all of the reviews were virtual reviews for the year. There were a few where there were hybrid meetings just because of the needs of the children. And children were able to participate virtually in those reviews. Some really like that and would like to see that continue. Other children prefer face-to-face, so it's a bit of a mixed bag, but we hope to continue to work on participation over the next year. In terms of learning and development, we continue to attend the IRO regional meetings with the other regions and to talk about learning, shared experiences, which is really important for all our IRO's development. So yeah, it's been a really positive year, but we have some really clear objectives for the next year, which I'm sure you've seen, and so really looking forward to embedding them really over the next year and continuing to contribute to improved outcomes for our children. So that's just a summary of the report.
Thank you. I think one of the main things that you said there was independent. For me, that is really important, that you are independent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody got any questions? Councillor Robinson.
Thank you for your report, and yeah, there's lots of real sort of good news in it actually, in terms of sort of the features and the targets. But something that struck me recently at a LAC review meeting was how somewhere else, not in Peterborough, but how really successful it was that the IRO was the same nationality as the children and the birth parent who was in the meeting. And I thought, oh, isn't that great that Lincolnshire County Council have got some diversity? So I wondered amongst our IROs, how is that in Peterborough? Do we have sort of strength and diversity amongst our IROs?
Should I? We do, and we have one IRO in particular that speaks a different language. So that helps some children when they speak the same language, and there is diversity. Obviously, it's not all the time, and there are other resources out there. So you can have something like an independent visitor that will work with a child from the same background and ethnicity, who will visit them, talk about their interests. But yeah, there is diversity within the team. I don't know if you wanted to add to that, Geoffrey.
Yeah, it's like Jane said, we will bring in like an interpreter if required, or independent visitor. We try to accommodate, I'd say, as much as possible, but we can, yeah.
I'm never sure in all sorts of officer roles and other roles within PCC how well we do on diversity. So I thought I would ask about in terms of IROs that's such sort of front facing for the children.
We'd also we'd also ask the child as well, because some of the children will relate their ethnicity as what is bad in their life, if that kind of makes sense. So we do have to ask them how they feel about that as well.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that as well. Anybody else with yes, Councillor Ayres.
Yes, thank you. I was particularly interested in your positive impact section. You said we did one, and going through those sort of scenarios that you were showing there, and I liked in particular and I hadn't realised that the IROs could get involved in the life generally for the child and make it so much better for them. With the one that impressed me was the young person wanted to return to school and there was some delay in these arrangements. The IRO intervened and the young person was able to start attending school again. Something like that can make a real difference to their lives, can't it? And I must say I hadn't realised that was how much they got involved.
Yeah. It is massive, and I think for some of our children, the IRO is the most consistent person in their life at times, and right. Sometimes they've known them for years as well, so they feel really able to be open and talk about. They have their mobile numbers, they'll call them, text them, and for that young person in particular, it was good they could reach out and say, this is what I need right now, and it could be responded to. And for the social work team, they were really responsive to that as well when the IRO brought it to their attention, so it just worked really well. Yes,
and then I moved over to the next page, which is on page 84, where you mention CAFCAS and the IRO service. Can you give us some idea of the difference between those two services? What does CAFCAS do that IRO doesn't, and vice versa?
I think with CAFCAS, they represent the child in court, so they will take the child's wishes and feelings to court, to the judge, whereas we represent the child as to the local authority, if that kind of makes sense.
Oh, right. Okay.
So the child will come to... I can give you an example, like the guardian will ring us if they're saying like, the local authority's care plan is this, whatever it is, and what do you think it is from the child's point of view? So we would give it that this is what we feel, and, as a child will say it, and they will move forward from that. They will ask us about our views with the local authority's care plan as well. Do we think it's right for the child from our perspective with the local authority? And again, take that to court. So if there's a disagreement, it's kind of managed before it gets to the court.
Right.
So that it is right for the child.
So you work closely together with CAFCAS?
Yes.
When something is happening for a child?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I understand that now.
I guess the difference is that the CAFCAS officer is involved for the duration of the court proceedings, but the IRO will be involved longer term as well. But we do work closely together, absolutely.
Yes. And right at the end of this report, there's a mention in your objectives to continue to build established relationships with partner agencies. I guess CAFCAS is probably one of those.
Yeah, absolutely.
What other agencies are you referring to there? Sort of like health or something like that? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. Health, education. I mean, for me, we already have quite established relationships with different agencies, and some agencies will come to us if they have a concern directly about a child as well. But I think it's just still building on that, and I think people change, people move on, so I think it's about continuing to know who the safeguarding leads are for each agency and just making sure that we're touching base and keeping in touch, really.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't see any more hands raised, but it's good to see that you are working. I think that flow between different departments makes the life for the child more manageable as well.
Yeah.
absolutely.
So, with no more hands raised, can I ask, do members agree to note the report? Again, nod of the heads. So, thank you very much for that report.
Thank you.
We now move on to item 10, which is performance report, which is a placement of children in care and scorecard. And Michaela, I think you're presenting this.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
So as you see, it's quite a brief report, so I'm at risk of just reading it to you if I offer highlights, but it talks about the breakdown of the 362 children at the end of May that were and where they were placed for the local authority. Also, in terms of the scorecard, just wanted to, obviously we pay a lot of attention to this in terms of our work with children in care. The highlights really, 100% of childcare reviews happened in timescales. Our placement stability, which we remain really pleased with that figure, but again, I think I explained at the last council meeting, we strive to make that even better. I think the impact of COVID is still evident in this report in terms of obviously dental examinations being at 54.9%, and obviously that's not something we would want, and hopefully we'll see that much improved in quite soon. But yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions on the report provided or the scorecard. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any questions from anybody? Councillor Ayres.
Again, sorry, thank you very much. Just on the second page, on page 93, the item children in care who go missing with a number of episodes. Do I understand from that more recently it's more, although there are none missing as such, presumably they go and they come back. Is that what that naught means? Even though there's some missing episodes.
Yeah, I think that means at that point in time when that was run, there were no children currently missing, which is great.
Not missing.
Yes. yeah, but no, unfortunately we have had children. We continue to have.
Yes, and do I take it that there's been a rise more recently? In March, I'm not sure what period this is, there's been a rise in children going or having missing episodes. Is that because the world is opening up a bit, do you suppose, or something as straightforward as that?
I mean, what social workers have been saying to me is that absolutely, yes, the children started socialising again, and we're in school, and quite a lot of our young people will go missing at this end of the school day. There'll be some plan had been made with friends at school. So yeah, I do think it was linked to kind of things, the lockdown.
Yes, it's strange how it goes, isn't it, as you look along the different months on that line. But anyway, thank you for that, because that sort of worried me a bit, and I just thought, I wonder if that's what it is. They're going to socialise like the rest of us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ayres. I suppose for some people, they see missing and the mind goes all over the place, but really missing is sometimes not coming home at the time that they've said, or going to visit people when they've not informed the foster parent or anything like that. So it's not missing. People probably know where they are, but it is marked as missing. Yeah, thank you. Councillor Robinson, I believe you've a question.
Yeah, mine's not a question so much as just a kind of note. Looking at the scorecard, one of the things I find hard to decide on if this is good news or something concerning is the kind of lack of comparative data, really. So for things like, percentage of statutory visits done on time, or children leaving care who are then adopted, I don't really know what that looks like across sort of the country, our statistical comparators, to know if that's any good, or if it's actually a terrible figure, or it's an outstanding figure. Or can I kind of assume that the targets which are set and reported are set to be somewhere that is the national average or a statistical comparator average? So yeah, if you could kind of explain some of that, and if that's something we could kind of have in the future.
Yeah, sure. I know on the tartan rug, which you get the is that the quarterly report? There's much more comparative data. I know generally we get to see what our statistical neighbours are and the national average. So I'm not sure. I'll find out why that's not provided on the monthly report. But I know on the quarterly reports that information is there. Yeah.
Sorry, Chair, can I just come in?
Yes, Rick,
I think there is an assertion that the targets are taking into account the national average. In terms of our statistical neighbours, particularly around adoption, there's the adoption scorecard, which looks at the nation, really, in relation to adoption. And we'll obviously have our regional neighbours as well, about obviously how we're doing as a region. So our statistical neighbours in Peterborough are not necessarily aligned to our region. There are several factors to consider. So we know what they all are and we can compare ourselves to them very readily. But I do take on point that it's not as clear here for you to see, to go, well, we're not doing as well as them, but we're doing better than them, perhaps. So we can take that away and think about actually how we can give you an overview to enable you to challenge, to say, well, we're not doing as well there as we perhaps should do there.
Yeah, and I think to follow up on something Councillor Ayres said earlier about sort of how things looked in the past, I think we have, the scorecard gives us a kind of great breakdown sort of month by month, but actually, you know, how does that look as a trend sort of to where we were as a council sort of 5 years ago, and that kind of comparative information. I mean, not in all reports, but just sort of somewhere once along the way.
Or to provide a summary that goes alongside this, that articulates that, to say, actually, we're not doing as well there, but we're doing better there, or we're exceeding this target, might just give you an overview. I'm happy to take that back to, obviously, the lead officer for
because a kind of
which is
trend.
Nicola, who's obviously not here today, hence why I'm here. But I'll take that back as an action. I'm happy to talk
that would be great, thanks, because I think particularly for people who are maybe newer to the committee, knowing they wouldn't have seen it in previous years, so, you know, seeing trends can always be very sort of informative.
Yeah, I think that's a good point there about comparing with previous or other areas. I think that's something that we would like to see on most things, actually. We always like to compare just to see whether we're improving, getting worse, or staying the same. It's something we need to know, really. Any other questions? I can't see any hands raised, so in that case, do members agree to note the report? Again, nod of heads, so thank you very much for that, Michaela. We move on to item 10A, which is the performance report for health. Who's doing that? I think it's Dr. Haslam, is it?
Yeah, so Catherine York, the designated nurse for children in care, she actually produced the report but couldn't be here today, so I'm reading it out. And the general summary is that we recently did an audit of initial health assessments and review health assessments in Peterborough, and the general quality of the health assessments was very good. There were a couple of areas that were noted at that time. One which you've alluded to already was the dental health of the children in care, and also the SDQs, which I'll come on to. We're not up to, the mark we would like them to be. And that then went on to look into the timeliness of the IHAs and the RHAs. And there were concerns regarding whether they were being done in time, and the time being sort of 20 days for them coming into care. And then further work was done between health and social care to look in more detail as to where the delays were occurring, and there are now sort of regular meetings every couple of weeks between health and social care. And I think things have improved since then, and the figures that Catherine has put down from April to June show a good improvement in terms of the timeliness of completion of the initial health assessments, with 95% being completed within the given time frame. Areas where, which she has noted, was one that the consent was late, so it was hard to do the health assessment in one case, that was in April. May was 100% completion rates, and so was in June. Some of the area, and sorry, going back to the initial health assessments, during the pandemic, they were being done in two ways. The children between 0 to 5 years, they were having face-to-face health assessments, and the children older than 5 years, they were having virtual health assessments. And actually that was welcomed by a large number of particularly the teenage group. We are trying to, since June of this year, move all IHAs in Peterborough to face-to-face now. Going on to the review health assessments, they had tended to be mainly by video unless there was a reason for them to be face-to-face. And moving on, as we open up more, it's going to be a hybrid model that has been proposed, that some will be face-to-face and some will be remote, so long as those children fulfill certain criteria. Looking at the timeliness of the RHAs, this was about 82%, so slightly lower in terms of timeliness. And the main areas of delay are those children who are Peterborough children that are placed out of county. So I've, in the meeting, been texting Catherine to ask what she meant by the reasons for the delay, in which she's put delays in receipt of documentation from the out-of-area team. And her explanation is that they have not given us the information so that we can be sure that they were done within that time frame. So it's not that they are necessarily late, but we haven't got all the information. So overall, there has been an improvement in the timeliness of the health assessments, both IHAs and RHAs, and I think that's due to the joint working between social care and health. In terms of the strengths and difficulties questionnaires, this is an area which has pre-COVID needed improvement, and during COVID has gone down further. The system is that children between the ages of 4 to 16 will have a strength and difficulties questionnaire. It's given to the carers, teachers, and children above the age of 11 will also fill out a strength and difficulties questionnaire, and they will look at the emotional as well as the behavioural aspects of their care to try and identify any areas of concern. Now, unfortunately, during the COVID time frame, we only had 49% returns of these questionnaires, and that is, obviously needs improving. Part of the reason we think may be that the system has been, the questionnaire is emailed to the carer, and we're not always receiving those emails. We're hoping that as more RHAs are being conducted face-to-face, we can make sure that they give those return questionnaires before they actually leave the RHA meeting. But we are open to other suggestions of how to improve that area.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just before I go on, you said that you are doing more face-to-face. Are you going to retain the possibility that if somebody cannot do a face-to-face for various reasons, that you'll still continue the virtual?
Yeah, I think so. I think no meeting is some meeting is better than no meeting, particularly for the RHAs where they've already had an initial health assessment, so that we know generally what their health needs are. If we are satisfied, and it's easier for some of the teenage group to do RHAs by virtual media, then yes, we would be happy to do that.
And another question from myself, I'm afraid. When they're out of area and you haven't got the paperwork, not that they may not have, they may have done things in time, are we working with those other areas and asking them to work a bit faster and a bit smoother so that we don't look as bad as
I don't know the answer to that because, as I say, Catherine prepared the report, but certainly I think that's a very valid point and I will take that back.
I think we do need to work with them. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? No. Thank you very much. I know you've stepped up in place, but thank you very much for your report. Can I ask members, do we agree to note the report? A nod of heads would say yes. Thank you very much. Dr. Haslam. We move on to item 11, which is members' issues. This is where members that are not part of the core children corporate parenting committee membership, but hold parent responsibilities, corporate parenting responsibilities, and they are invited to raise any issues they have with regard to the services provided to children in care. I know that we did have one councillor who couldn't make it today who wanted to raise a question. I will leave them to come back to us. But are there any other councillors? I can't see any. But I would ask that we do bring up any other questions and ask other councillors to raise questions if they have any, or anything that they want to raise with the children in care, because I think that would really improve this meeting if we did have some councillors attend and ask questions. So on that, we'll then move on to item 12, which is the draft work programme and review of work for 2020-2021. And Ricky, I believe this is you.
I think, Chair, that my understanding
I know
is that
Karen's going to do, but I was going to let you do first.
I'm happy to do the work schedule by all means. So the work schedule at Appendix 1 is included in the documents. So I think it is just a matter for members to consider whether they want to continue as is or whether they wish to make any amendments to the work schedule. And then for us to review the terms of reference, which I think probably Karen is going to attend to.
You still going?
All I was going to say is obviously our next formal meeting, I beg your pardon, our next informal meeting is the 22nd of September, and the theme for that meeting is education. So we've got work schedule in the plan for that. Our next formal meeting is in November, which doesn't seem possible, does it, that we're looking that far ahead in time? But the theme for that formal meeting is education also, and there is a schedule there of those officers presenting reports. It's whether that is fit for purpose or whether members wish to make any changes to that. Our meeting in January 2022, which again doesn't seem even possible, is relating to health. And again, we've got those subject matters listed there, with the next formal meeting on the 16th of March. And again, that is a health-related topic, which is our formal meeting. So I think it is just for members and yourself, Chair, to see whether you're content with the work schedule, or indeed whether you wish to make any amendments or changes or request anything else of officers.
Before we go on to Karen, does anybody any other questions on this or any changes that they wish to make? No. I think over the last few years we have got the themes in place, and they seem to work very well with education and health when they're required to come. So, Karen.
Hi. So the other part of the report provides you with a review of the items that you've had at each of the committees throughout the year, and those items are listed out, and you'll have had standing agenda items such as the performance reports, reports from foster carers, Children Care Council, and monitoring reports. The other part of this report is to look at any of the actions, recommendations that were made last year, and to look to see if there's anything that you think needs ongoing review, or you'd like to come back to committee.
So, anybody, any comments on that, or anything we wish to add? Anything that they think we should continue to keep in mind or look at again? Councillor Robinson.
Yeah, sorry, I've got that kind of end of school year fog going on, but trying to get my brain into gear. I think one thing that struck me about the kind of COVID impact is I've heard that it's had quite a disproportionate impact on sort of young people and neets. So I wondered if in a report with the theme of education, we could perhaps have a little information on how it's going for those not in education. Just sort of touched upon in somebody's report could be useful.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. I think actually we could do that with health as well. I think it may be appropriate to see what the impact has been health-wise, as well as education. Is everybody agreeing on that? Yes. Can we put that in, please? Karen, thank you very much. Is that it? Thank you very much. So we have a few things to agree here. So first one is to agree to note the 2021 year in review and make recommendations onto future monitoring of these items where necessary. I think those two items have done that. Item 2 is agree to the priorities and approve a draft working programme for formal and informal meetings for 2021-22, and that is attached to Appendix 1. I think we've already spoken about that. We do have the themes that are running, so that kind of helps. And item 3, agree to note the recommendations and actions monitoring reports attached at Appendix 4, and considers if further monitoring of these during the 2021-22 municipal year is required. We have put those two items in. And item 4 is note the terms of reference for this committee as set out in Part 3, Delegation Section 2, Regulatory Committee Functions 2.4. I believe we've done that, and everybody in agreement? Any additions or subtractions or comments? In that case, we have done that on that item. The last item we have is the dates of the next meeting. So as Ricky has just said, the informal meeting is on the 22nd of September 2021, and Councillor Robinson, you will be back at school by then. And 24th of November is the formal. So they are the dates that we are back to a formal meeting. So apart from that, unless anybody else has any comments to make, I'd like to thank... Yeah, I'd just like to make a few couple of comments. I would like to thank Sue and Dr. Azam and all the officers for attending tonight, and thank you to the committee. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.